What's up, sexy people of the internet? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new release from Brighton-based alt metal quartet El Moono.
All right. Was miles off.
The band's new album, The Waking Sun, will be released on May 10th via Lockjaw Records.
Lockjaw?
Yeah, I know.
Don't call it a callback, man. Holy fuck.
No. El Moono have returned with their highly anticipated 13-track debut album, The Waking Sun, marking an exciting turn for El Moono, moving toward the darker and more abrasive and more mature release from a band already marked for great things. Fittingly, several songs from The Waking Sun have been confirmed as syncs in the forthcoming horror film The Girl Who Cried Her Eyes Out. Yeah. I don't know, you heard of that one? I hadn't heard of that one. But
No, but if it's forthcoming, that might be why I've not heard of it yet.
right. A band never to shy away from exploring deep topics, The Waking Sun drips in irony. The title track is a day-to-day analysis of depression, lingering throughout every waking moment of the day. A general theme in the band's writing from Temple Corrupted in 2022, the track is a nice summation of the Waking Sun as a whole, despite being the only song the band have ever written in a major key. Clear then that on The Waking Sun, El Moono further explore their off-kilter and oftentimes mind-bending riff writing, emotive soundscapes and expressive lyricism, creating a record that will only further prove their genre-phobic reputation. The album was recorded at Middle Farm Studios, produced and mixed by Sam Coveney, and mastered by Ackle from Tesseract at 4D Sounds. So El Moono, I think there's like, I had a look on Spotify, I think there's like 5 singles out from this so far. So there's listeners, there's plenty out there right now. If you want to go and have a listen, go and check it out.
Is there a lot of people moaning that we're reviewing things that they can't listen to?
No, not necessarily, but just, you know, there's a good selection of tracks for you to go and have a little listen
As
to.
in, don't fucking just sit there and listen to us talk about things. Obviously, we'll like the view. But at the same time, do your own fucking homework. Stop copying from our sheet.
But what did we think of the rest of this album as a whole? I was completely new to this. You, I'm assuming, were the same. El Moono.
Oh, yeah. I also did not have them in the UK, so
oh, really?
like, even a little bit.
Interesting. What did you think?
American.
Oh,
yeah, 100% thought they were American.
Interesting. What did you think then? What did you make of this debut from El Moono?
I think this is fucking great. Like, my card's down right now.
Right.
I think this reminds me of so many bands, like so, and I mean that in the best possible way. I know that they said in their press statement, sorry guys, I don't read press statements, that they're genre-phobic, which would make sense because the bands that I kind of cobbled together and their sound don't all comfortably sit in the same genre, if I'm honest. There's a lot of, and I apologise for this, and I hope they don't take offence at this, a lot of new metal in this, right? That makes me fucking happy, right? Specifically Deftones. Like, some would argue Deftones are not new metal. That's fine. That's just where they sat when I got into them, right? And they have transcended that a while ago, and they probably transcended it by album number 3, to be fair. But for the sake of getting through this fucking review, new metal. Weirdly, a little bit of Korn on some of the riffs.
Right.
There's a little bit of American Head Charge in here. There's a little bit of Motograter in the vocals, which started to kind of work its way out in the melody. It's the choice of melody that he did. It was like almost if the Motograter vocalist ended up like shagging, it's always shagging, shagging Trent Reznor by way of Ivan Moody, Motograter, and then Chino was in the room filming it.
Right.
It's a weird kind of a fucking like thing going on there. Let me talk about the things that I really fucking like about this, right?
Okay.
The first thing I like about this is it's fucking huge, right? This is one of these ones that it just feels like every song has depth. Like, and it's because they don't over clutter the space. So you get a riff that'll go something like bow da ba da da da. And in those gaps in between, I can feel a void, and then you get pulled back out, almost as if someone was dunking your head in water and the music was playing and you were being pulled out. Or Ace Ventura was doing that thing with the door where he's like, ah, ah, ah. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing where like the song could be playing through, but like the sound's been cut off and then you're washed back in with it again. And that adds to its huge sound. I think sometimes bands overcompensate by kind of making the songs too thick with things, and that's cool. I mean, it sounds heavy, but I don't necessarily think it sounds huge. This sounds fucking huge, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing it has an abundance of is really slow headbangy riffs.
Yeah.
Like just an obscene amount of kind of new metal-y inspired headbangy riffs.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about like Limp Bizkit bims. The actual flow of this album and tempo is slower than that. It's deliberately slower, so much so that they play a little cheeky prank on me on track number 6, Chains, where like you start getting like in the middle, but it starts going. The snare starts rolling up. He's like something along the lines like "Give me all you got" or something. I was like, "Are we about to go fucking fast here?" And then it goes halftime, and I was like, "Oh, like that." So love that. Love that about it. Second thing I love about it is also the depth of instrumentation and atmosphere. We're going to come to the vocals, trust me. It's cleverly layered in the sound. Sometimes it's right there in the choruses. It sits right beside the guitars. It's as loud as the guitars. It might be actually a combination of either synths or guitar effects, clean effects. Fucking amazing, right? Absolutely brilliant. But other times they will just happily let it sit as just this kind of ethereal thin layer that sits actually below the bass. And once again, it fills their sound out, but adds drama to their sound. Really fucking cool. Really, it's a Deftones technique when you listen to tracks like The Charm, which is might as well be a Deftones song, right? I mean that the Deftones are in my like top 5 bands of all time. So if I use that, it's not as a slight, it's as the best compliment I can come up with. It reminded me a lot of the way that they play specifically with texture and tone and atmosphere in their synths. Fucking amazing, right? So that's the second thing. Third thing, and this is their secret weapon here, vocals. The vocals are fucking amazing, right? And it's mostly because of the dexterous nature which he employs his melody. So there's a harsh tone there, there's a screamy tone there, but there's also there's at least 3 styles of melodic tone that he deploys. Some of them in the kind of alt metal side of things, some in the kind of new metal side of things, and then some that are just a wee bit jaggier than both of those. And he interchanges them in really interesting ways, so you don't get them all in one song. In fact, if anything, this band are masters of not giving you everything on one song, and actually kind of cleverly dotting about what they're going to do. And as a result of that, the flow of the album, which I mentioned before, is at a very, very deliberate pace. This is an album that doesn't ever really kind of move into third gear. It kind of sits comfortably in second gear pretty much all the way through. It's those changes in techniques and approach to how they craft the songs vocally that actually make them really memorable. I was wondering about how singing to these choruses after the first listen, I was just right in there, locked in straight away. That's what, if you're writing melody, that's what you want. You want those earworms to hook right in. So I'm hugely surprised you're telling me this is album number 1, because to me that feels like something bands get better at over time. You know what I mean? It's usually about the 3rd or 4th album where they finally lock in exactly, all right, the fans sing it this when we do it, so we should have tracks that have more of this. It's just in here. There's an element when they call themselves alt metal or whatever it is. I think that comes from the kind of grungy influence that's also in here. You listen to a track like Chains, for example, which has a kind of small Alice in Chainsy vibe on the guitar playing. Totally fucking works. Totally works. It's just an extra fucking string to their violin. You know what I mean? It's just it works so well. I will say this. I think the first 7 tracks in this are like unabashed fucking bangers, right? Like every single one of them is great. I think on the back half the album is a little bit inconsistent, but not in a way which made me go like, "Oh, you shat the bed, lads. You were so close." I feel so they have like Dawn and Orbit and Dusk are the 3 kind of instrumental tracks that are actually placed at logical points. Go figure that. A band that actually uses them in logical points to break up the album. It is almost front, middle, and end. And none of them are overly long. Dawn clocks in about a minute and a half. Orbit is under a minute and a half. Dusk, the closing one's 30 seconds.
Yep.
Show me the last band that did like an instrumental outro thingy on an album that was 30 seconds long. Fucking love that, right? You get the thumb up that this computer auto generates. So I love that aspect about it. The back half of the album is where I think they try and experiment, and not all those experiments necessarily work all that well for me. Phantom's an example of that. Phantom at the start starts playing with some industrial elements, but I feel like those industrial elements actually never come to fruition. So the track begins with like almost kind of drum machine claps and clicks. The riff that comes afterwards is fucking great. I don't know the purpose of that intro. It's a very new metal-y thing to do. And actually that track itself has him vocally kind of doing a bit of the new metal. And it's the one that kind of reminded me a little bit of American Head Charge. Once again, I love American Head Charge. But as American Head Charge were really good at doing, specifically on the War of Art, there would be tracks where you'd be listening going, right, where's the heavy guitars? Why is there like a funky bass playing? What are those weird keyboard sims? And they would do that for a while and then hit you with a heavy chorus. Phantom does that. It doesn't hang together as cohesively for me as some of the other songs. It's made up by the fact that Screw Loose comes in, which is an absolute fucking banger of a track. Loved it. It's the one where I feel like they just lock back in as a band and then deliver the goods. Marionettes is a kind of slow, almost sludgy, kind of big groovy riff. Kind of reminded me a little bit of like Loathe without the precision. If you know what I mean. It also reminded, once again, there was a little bit about the American Head Charge on that as well. And then you get Solar Eclipse, which is the closing track, which does sound really huge, but by the time Solar Eclipse comes in, I feel like it's almost a regurgitation of a lot of what we've heard before. And not in a negative way. There's still like clean guitar sounds that I think are really lush and beautiful and stand in contrast to some of the things you've heard before. But because the tempo isn't any different than a lot of what's come before, the guitar tones are very, very similar in place, and vocally it doesn't do anything that pushes the boat out. It doesn't feel like as remarkable a closing track as it might have been, which is the overall vibe for me. Is I think the album is maybe a little bit too long for a debut. Now I understand if they're doing it as a kind of quasi score for a, like you can get away with that, but to me, I felt personally you could probably take 1 or 2 songs out of this. It would not affect the overall flow, and actually the album would just hit stronger. Notwithstanding that, though, I don't actually think there's a bad song on here. And even though Phantoms, to me, starts with an idea that doesn't really necessarily pay off, it's trying something different, and it's coming on the back half of the album. It's the opening track on the back half of the album, so you can kind of almost get away with that. It's not a bad song at all. Let me put it this way. Overall, I think El Mono has, like, fucking impressed me. Like, genuinely, I have listened to this quite a bit, and I think it sounds huge. I think it captures a lot of the vibes and sounds of bands I listened to when I was in my late teens, early 20s. And that is nostalgia AF for me every day of the week. You give me a band that's in that wheelhouse, and I will drink from that wheelhouse. That well. You know what I mean? It is one of those things that I kept coming back to, because it just felt like it was comfort. It's a comfort album for me, even though it is not the cheeriest in disposition. A lot of the music I listened to in my late teens and early 20s wasn't the cheeriest. Yeah, these guys are ones to watch. Super surprised they're from the UK. That doesn't make any sense to me. But I'd fucking love to see these guys live. Like, genuinely would love to see these. You're smiling because you know something, right? I just thought it sounded fucking great. I love what they're doing, and when I think of the UK alternative scene, metal scene, there's a space for a band like this. Yeah, this is fucking great. I thought it was really, really, really good. Notwithstanding album length, a little bit long, and one track, but I think I would like to have seen. My criticism is if you're going to bring that industrial element and use it a little bit more in other songs, or more on the back half. That is literally it. That's my gripes. What about you? How did you get on?
A lot of interesting stuff going on here. Before I even listened to the band, the first thing that piqued my interest was Lockjaw Records. I was like, what the fuck?
I didn't even know Lockjaw was still on the go. That's another one from you talk about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We were listening to music on Lockjaw.
Yeah, like that was fucking pre-Spotify days when you fucking you bought CDs and you fucking copied them for your pals. You know what I mean? That's like back in the day.
Unless that was an illegal thing to do, then you didn't do it or admit to it on a review.
Yeah, I had a lot of appreciation for Lockjaw. They didn't have like the biggest roster, but the quality was always there.
Their bands toured like fuck as well.
Yeah,
like you like at any given year, you saw almost the entire roster of Lockjaw.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Out on support or out headlining.
But great to hear a band like El Moono on Lockjaw, because I remember like back in the day, Lockjaw was like very heavily hardcore and punk stuff they used to put out. So something like this is really cool. Like it's awesome to hear them kind of diversifying a bit. This band, there's a lot going on here. So like style wise for me, it was like I was hearing a lot of kind of like post-hardcore tendencies. They do kind of for me lean into quite a bit of that kind of alternative side, where there's a heavy kind of Deftones atmosphere around it for sure. And I totally pick up on the kind of the new metal kind of characteristics and certain things.
It's not a new metal album. Just want to stress that.
This
is not one of the new metal's back.
Just it's certain parts of riffs, I was like, right, okay, a little bit kind of throwbacky. But I had a listen to they had a 2022 EP, which I checked out. It showed quite a heavy edge to it, to be honest. There was moments on the EP where they were leaning on like sludge and post metal, which they haven't completely left out of this release. There's still little elements in there, but on the Waking Sun though, this is obviously the first time the band have had the chance to fully experiment with that longer run time, and I think this is about 46 minutes in length. So they've really tried to expand the kind of palette of sounds and give you a much bigger, much wilder kind of journey than before. To be honest, actually, the link with the horror film kind of makes sense when you hear this album, because there's definitely a much darker kind of streak to this than previously. And even though these songs still have there's still vocal hooks kind of embedded in the songs, you can hear like from the off on on Illusionist, the synths and the guitar work have a much kind of bleaker tone to them, and it kind of adds an almost kind of thematic kind of feeling to this album. That kind of darkness and melancholy kind of ties the tracks together, and the tone of this album kind of feels almost heavier than the music itself at times. It's still a heavy release, but maybe not quite as like post metal or sludgy as Tempo Corrupted. But there are moments where the riffs do get hella chunky. That opening riff on the title track has a big old hefty groove to it, which is awesome, but they kind of counterbalance it with this huge chorus and a huge kind of vocal hook. It's probably one of the more kind of upbeat kind of tracks of the album. It also includes additional vocals from Leah Stanhope from Congratulations, which is, it kind of adds a nice like emotional kind of side to the track.
Come on.
What?
From Congratulations. God. We can't say that word without saying it like that.
She reminded me a little bit. There's a little bit of a kind of Bjork thing going on in her voice. Just the way she kind of moves from note to note, which I thought was cool. I loved the addition of the piano on the Charm. It's very haunting. And actually, I said like the title track was the most upbeat track, but actually the chorus of the Charm has a bit of a kind of pop character to it as well, which is it's really interesting because the track itself is very dark. It's about domestic abuse, I think, but the chorus almost has this kind of like slight kind of glimmer of hope to it. I agree. There's a very Deftonesy kind of technique about that track for me, the same as kind of you picked up on. But El Moono kind of they love to pair these like these elements. Like kind of posing, so you've got like really like somber kind of bleak moments, but with moments of kind of beauty within them. The track Haunting is a great example of that, where they're bringing together like shoegaze and blast beats, and it's like what the fuck. But vocally, like I was getting some kind of Greg Puciato kind of vibes, and certain
far
melodies.
Off me saying Trent Reznor then. I mean,
same guy.
I mean, they're practically, well, maybe. I mean, there's connective tissue.
Yeah, there is there. But I think that track was one where it was kind of coming across the most for me. I think, like, tonally, there's a similarity, which is a huge compliment. I think Greg's...
like Greg Puciato is one of the best metal vocalists on the planet right now.
Yeah.
So.
They also like to throw in some fucking curveballs, though. The First Man on Mars and Orbit had this very, like, contrasting style. The way it begins with this kind of like pop like kind of world music kind of feel, it's got like steel drums on it, and then ends up in this like doom meets sludge kind of like colossus of an ending. It sounds like it's heavy as balls, one of the heaviest parts on the album. Another curveball would be the start of Phantom. So on start of Phantom, you've got this kind of electro vibe. There's a fucking didgeridoo on there as well, Duncan. Like,
I mean,
what the hell?
Hey, if it's in the studio, blow.
Yeah, I mean, part of me thinks it did work, and part of me thinks I feel like they set it up well with the previous song, previous track, Orbit. It's just the kind of precursor to it. So I
Orbit
felt like
has a lot of orchestration in it, so that I think that's why, you know, it's like it starts off really like it's like a big boom, and then it starts getting all like kind of weirdly like a kind of, you know, like when you walk into, I was going to say when we walk into, we never walk into, but if you've ever like watched a video of an orchestra getting in tune, you get like it has that kind of big roomy orchestra feel to it.
Yeah.
So maybe someone at the side had the didgeridoo. I don't know. Dave.
Yeah. But yeah, like I felt like the track before kind of worked as a kind of lead into it. I do kind of agree with you where the electronic parts maybe could have been used a little bit more earlier on in the album just to kind of tie it up a little bit. But it's one of the more experimental tracks on the album. Also, it still has like some utterly devastating riffs on it as well, though. And just like when you think they're done getting weird, they bring in some kind of like retro Hammond organ on marionettes, and kind of alongside those like dissonant riffs. It really adds this feeling of like unease to the whole thing. Kind of linking back to what I said earlier about the tracks being kind of suited to something kind of horror related. And then Solar Eclipse, which is technically the last actual song on the album.
Yeah, I count it as the last song because the song after that's 30 seconds.
Yeah,
so.
it kind of goes all out to give you something really ambitious. It's dreamy, it's atmospheric, it's layered with synths, it's crushingly heavy. You know, the rhythms, it's quite choppy, and it kind of leads you out into Dusk, which is the kind of calm outro track, and obviously cleverly ties in the Dusk and Orbit to it's like a full Journey of the Sun type thing. It took me a few listens to fully like kind of digest this album. I do feel like yourself, it is slightly long. I think a couple of tracks less would have been slightly easier to digest. I feel there's a lot of detail in this. There's a lot of different shades to it, but once you get a feel for it, there's a huge amount to enjoy on this one. They've clearly spent a lot of time and effort making sure this isn't just a on the surface type album. Like it's got a lot of depth, a lot of honesty to it, and musically it's very well put together. I think it would have been very easy for this album to become quite convoluted with the number of layers and the different instrumentation they've used, but I think El Moono have made sure the album doesn't become too kind of over cluttered with stuff. They know, you know, when to tighten the reins, when to kind of let it breathe, and then kind of keep control of it. Even the production is well paired with the sound. There's a kind of breathiness or airiness to the production that really kind of lifts that dreamy side of the band, and it sounds huge. The production sounds amazing. Yeah, this is really good. Like, I would definitely recommend people check this out and you know, spend a bit of time with it. It's an album that kind of reveals more the more you kind of listen to it. There's definitely a lot there to enjoy. So, what we're thinking scores for this one? What's your score on The Waking Sun?
I think this is excellent. I'm going to give it a 4.5. I like the minor quibbles I have with this are that minor quibbles. I'm full in on this band. So like they are putting out the stuff that gets me kind of excited about music. So 4.5 for me.
Yeah, I'd totally agree. Yeah, I feel like this is well worthy of a score of a 4.5. There's a hell of a lot going on. They are clearly
debut as well. You know what I mean?
A debut album.
Sake.
That's ridiculous. They're extremely good at what they do. And if this is the kind of level and quality they're putting out on a debut, like, what is the next one going to be like? Like, it's kind of mind blowing to think about. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Well worth checking this one out. It drops on May 10th on Lockjaw Records. I'll put all the links below to the band, to the pre-order, so you can check it out, have a listen, see what you think. Let us know in the comments below. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.